Okay. Yeah, we were just talking about fear and how even as four amazing practitioners here, we've got Julie Fubista. She's the founder of Thrive Hive. She's an amazing transformational coach, supporting primarily people who have gone through a huge transition in their life from her own story and background of having cancer, being diagnosed with cancer and overcoming that. But we were just talking about the thing that we all go through, all of us as therapists, of just really struggling with our own fear. And so we're coming to you today to chat about fear and how that can really hold us back in our professional lives and in our love lives, relationships. And we're going to be really real and honest about the shit that holds us back. And with us, we also have Jackie Jones. We know Jackie, we've spoken before. We've got Jackie from BioResonate, everything holistic health. And Laura Bruce is with us as well. Amazing Laura from Embody Loving You. And all of us together as a four, we hear so much from not just the clients that we work with, but also ourselves going through having the confidence to just go forward with what we already know. And we were just saying how tempting it is to go on the next course and collect the next certificate and just to keep learning more. And so girls, like what's behind all of that?
For me, I think it's about just wanting to better your knowledge, improve what you offer your clients, and to give them, just to be able to help people really, and give them that more in-depth if it's something you don't understand or something you think, like for me, I've added on EFT and tapping because emotional issues. So it's wanting to be able to help them. And also, I think the fear comes in as you think, I don't know enough as well. So you just think, I'll just keep adding them and keep learning.
I think it's the balance of the two, the fear and the desire for knowledge, and finding that balance. Because I know when I started out, there was a lot of fear and a lot of desire for knowledge. And I'm glad that I stuck with that because I needed the knowledge. I hate when people actually don't know what they're talking about and they're telling me something and I think, wait a minute, I don't get that, and they can't explain it. And I would hate to be in that position. So I needed to acknowledge my fear and get the knowledge that I wanted to make me feel safe enough to be able to be offering knowledge, to have like enough level of knowledge to be able to advise and to be able to support and to be able to guide and walk alongside people. But it's knowing when is enough. That's always my boundary. When is enough? Because I always want more.
It's like an amazing addiction as well. Once you tap into your own awakening and your own aha moments in life, which, let's be honest, have only grown from a pit of crap. You've gone through some real hell and you've grown through that yourself, and you read that book and you listen to that podcast, so you learn this new thing, and then all of a sudden it's like what I call like a healthy addiction. But you do need to know when's the time to stop so that you can move forward as a woman in business and start making those actions and doing those things to really help you help others and move forward. Otherwise, we're just going to keep staying stuck in the place of sitting back and learning forever, and we'll have 22 certificates on our wall,
As that big wall is, you could even get a few more.
So like we're talking about fear today, and whether, like I say to our audience who's listening, whether you are self-employed, running your own business, thinking about starting up but haven't because you're scared to, or you're transitioning, relationship in your life, something that's stopping you from moving forward, let's really dig deep what is underneath this fear that we have. So I work with a lot of people that really struggle with their self-confidence, And so we know that our fear is based on a lack of self-confidence. But what does that actually mean? Because I feel like in the industry, how do you guys feel? You'll be watching these videos and listening to life coaches, and they're all saying the same thing. And they're all saying, oh, fear is a lack of confidence. Well, great. But when you're listening, how the hell do I fix that?
Yeah.
Like, knowing it isn't enough. So we need to go like deeper. And for me personally, I feel like when I was going through this, it was a serious lack of trust in myself, trust in my decisions, trust in my opinions, because throughout my entire life, whatever relationship it was looking after me or who I was with, whether it was a parent giver or somebody who I was with in a relationship, were always questioning my decisions. And so when someone is always questioning you, you are always questioning you. And with that like complete lack of trust in self, you end up sitting there in worrying and focusing on what other people think. And what I hear the most coming up for people is the fear of judgment from others. But I truly feel like, and let's see, how do you guys feel about this? I feel like the fear of judgment from other people is really just us projecting onto them as a shield, because we haven't faced our internal belief system, and what we believe is we don't believe that we can do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's right. And I use that now whenever I get a feeling, you know, if I sense that I'm being judged or something, I look at that now as like, well, what's going on for me, rather than it being about them being judgy. I'm like, oh, okay, so I'm feeling something here, right? Let's really explore that. And I think the biggest mistake I ever made relating to fear was believing that it shouldn't exist. You know, like I shouldn't be scared, I shouldn't, you know. And before we get to all of that, why am I fearful? It's important to understand feeling of fear, because we just run from it so often, don't we? And we don't examine it, and we don't sort of dig into why we're feeling the way that we're feeling. And then running away from it just, in my experience, means it just hangs around. It just stays there. It doesn't go anywhere. It doesn't transform into anything. So just being able to sit and really feel that feeling, and then from there, kind of almost diagnose it within yourself. What is it that's causing that? And in doing so, I've found that it just starts to dissolve. The feeling of fear starts to disappear a little bit. It's no longer this big, scary thing.
I definitely get that, like acknowledging it. I think throughout most of my life, I would, as you say, pretend it's not there. Or literally, I've been thinking about this morning, treat it like a naughty child that's misbehaving, and literally be like, right, we're going to behave in this way. This is how we're going forward. I'll deal with you later. Really aggressive with myself around it. I'll deal with you later. So I would present as being fine, but underneath I was absolutely churning. And then the deal with it later would come back with like massive overthinking later on that would keep me awake at night, literally overthinking, analysing every single bit of it. So learning to actually, a child is not being naughty and your fear is not being naughty. It's actually part of you and it needs to be heard. And when it's actually heard and understood, all the different layers that are within it, you can actually have it like an ally along with you, rather than this thing that needs to be pushed away. And I think that's been the biggest change for me, to actually go, oh, I'm feeling fear right now. I'm feeling afraid. Like I'm feeling afraid right now. Well, what are the parts of that? Where does that come from? What are the different layers within it? Can I hold each one of them? And if I hold each one of them, as you say, it dissolves. It becomes something different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think me probably not as deep as maybe you two have been, but in the sense of not feeling worthy enough to do things. And yeah, I think it goes back to like what you said, Sam, the self-confidence. not feeling you're good enough, and that becomes a fear that can either hold you back, or you've got to do something about it and you've got to move through it. And for me, it's more like the more times you face it, the easier it gets. And I've probably not really dealt in that deeply as you have pulled it apart, because I suppose we're all just different, and it's in the sense of it's just a case of accepting, okay, and to the point having to say to yourself, no, it's okay to feel like this. This is not, it doesn't mean you're not actually worthy. Try it. And when you try it, and then over time, when you see the good result come back, you think, okay, yeah, I am all right at this. I can do this. And for an example, taking back when I first started bioresonance, I was terrified of treating clients, because what if I got it wrong? What if I've not understood it right? And so initially I would hold myself back from doing things because of that fear. But gradually, the more you do it, the more you see those results, the more you see that, yeah, that's right. And the confidence builds. And so as your confidence builds, then that fear diminishes.
Absolutely. And as you're talking about how you move on from that, and for me, with it being every decision and every choice I was making, having been questioned so many years, I started making little decisions that I would stick by, or little choices. The biggest move for me in my life was to stop seeking external opinions, and not just to stop doing it, but if you do it, make sure you're going to the right person. So if I need to ask a question about my life coaching business, go and speak to a successful life coach. Don't go and speak to somebody who has never done it or doesn't understand the online world. Because you're talking to the wrong audience. And I've spoken before about, you're knocking on the restaurant and you want a curry, but you're at the fish and chips, and you're not going to get what you need. So I had to stop outsourcing support and opinions from the wrong people, and I had to stop it altogether. And as soon as I stopped, because I knew that was seeking external validation, as long as they say that it's okay for me to do this thing and they think it's a good idea, then I can go and do it. It's like I felt so much calmer in my body, like straight away. Not going to those people, I felt instantly better. And it wasn't like weeks or months. I literally felt instantly better because I wasn't fighting other people anymore. And as you say, Jackie, celebrating the small wins, our ta-da moments. I love our ta-da moments. And that's something that as women, I find we don't do it enough, or we struggle. We struggle so much at being able to say, you are fucking awesome, Sam. Well done. You put out your blog post today. Bravo. Go and celebrate yourself.
Yeah, it's about building that evidence for yourself, isn't it, over time? So you can always go back to that. But if you don't acknowledge it in the first place, you've not got that bank of sort of evidence to build that trust in yourself. And so, first point is probably the hardest, isn't it? That little push you need to give yourself just to go over the line. And then after that, you're like, whoa, I pushed myself over the line. Even just doing that is a big deal. But we don't stop and take the time to acknowledge things like that as much as we should.
Exactly. And like truth is proof, right? So when the fear comes up, I ask myself now, is it true? Where's the evidence? Is this me assuming that someone is judging me or thinking something or whatever? Is it true, or is that just me? Have I made that up? Because I was really good at making up all sorts of stories. Who resonates with that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. This is what I do for myself and clients as well. We just play the true false game, and it comes from sort of Katie Byron's work, we're just working through all of that, and you get once you've got to the belief that you have, like, what is it that you're thinking about this situation? Once you've got to that belief, just asking, is it true? Majority of time it's not. Majority of time it's absolute nonsense. It's total gibberish. But if we don't take the time to sort of sit and think about it and analyze it, we can let that shit just like rule our everyday life.
Absolutely. And our internal belief system is, as far as I'm concerned, having now left one career, gone self-employed, started a new one, been divorced, been the single mum, found new love, you know, gone through everything in both love and business life. My internal belief system was in the gutter, and so was my body. And I suffered a lot with IBS. And as I was writing my notes this morning, I was like, internal belief system, IBS. There's a cool link. And I thought it was no wonder I was sat on the toilet for years with a shit, because my belief system was screwed. So like, how do you guys feel about how fear has shown up for you in your body? Because as you know, I work with the body as well, and I think it's really important today for us to cover how fear actually shows up.
For me, I mean, I would say, you know, and with clients, you're really looking at stress and the cortisol levels and how that impact then affects you, and you don't realize at the time, but your body's taking in these patterns and these messages in the cells, and that's what then leads on to disease, because we talk about disease being the dis-ease in the body, and it's that chronic stress that you constantly, and you're not doing anything with it, you're just taking it on board, to the point then the body goes, oh hey, I've had enough now. You've bombarded me with this for so many years. And I think so it is key to actually undoing the ill health that's going on in the body, is getting those emotions, getting those you know, that fear, that stress that fear causes, that, you know, that all of those things build up over time, and we've got to undo them. We've got to take that time out, you know, because we end up with disease.
Absolutely. And when I was diagnosed with cancer, that was the biggest sort of kick up the butt for me in sitting and thinking about these things. And it was the biggest practice of dealing with fear, really, being diagnosed with that. But I think what I realized was that there was a massive disconnect between what I was thinking up here and what was going on in my body. And I never used to connect the two. I used to always think that as long as I had my head in the game, I'd be absolutely fine. But I was never connecting to what was going on in here. And so I wasn't hearing the signals. I wasn't listening to what my body was trying to tell me. So I think it's just so important to have that, both things working together, isn't it?
And you know, I think that stems from the way we're taught with Western medicine. It's, we're dealing with the head, we're dealing with the digestive system, we're dealing with this. They don't deal like we do as holistic therapists, the whole thing. And if they did that, then people would start to make those connections, that actually what's going on in your digestive system is showing you that it's related to the stress that's going on in your life, because, you know, it's the second brain. But people don't understand all of those things. And but it is a culture that we're bombarded with daily, that they're separate.
That compartmentalization, isn't it? That's the mind, that's the body.
Yeah,
They're related. Yeah, I know that I had a lot of physical symptoms, that I knew that I was stressed and I was having physical symptoms, but it's been years of unpicking and healing. I want to get to healing. My thing is healing. Taking charge of that, actually processing it. That's what I want to do. So understanding the relationship between the physical, the energetic, the emotional. When you've got that running smoothly, then you can get to the wisdom that you want to learn from it. That's my place at the moment. So I would have, as you say, Sam, definitely IBS symptoms, chronic back pain. My back pain is my warning. Whoa, something's going on here. You need to deal with it. Headaches, palpitations, all of those things I would suffer from. But now I relate to them, like I say, as like, oh, okay, if that's showing up right now, what's happening? What's happening with you? Because it's shown up, there's something going on. You need to get connected to it again. That's the way I work now.
Absolutely. And you know, years ago, it's a bit like we didn't know what yoga was until we all knew what yoga was. And we didn't even know what holistic was until we all know what holistic therapy was. And I've been using in the last 2 years the word somatic from somatic experiencing, which is very American based. However, it is based on so much new neuroscientific research out there. But still, so many people always say to me, what's somatic healing, Sam? What does that mean? And it is no different to just mind, body, and spirit connection. It's going through every single pillar of your life. And as you were saying, Jackie, it's so important. I believe now therapy has to radically change, and we can't. It's a bit like the education system. You know, the private tutors could have really helped during COVID. You know, there's the private and there's the public world. There's the medical world, there's the private, and there's the public. And we've got to stop separating talk therapies from body therapies, from spiritual therapies. And we've got to all start incorporating and working together, which is why I love meeting you guys and making the connections, and not feeling the fear actually as a professional, of feeling the fear of threat. You know, in your local area, you know, you're working and you might do the same as another therapist down the road, and there's the fear of clients and earning money, and we all know the truth of the fear behind that. But that level of scarcity is stopping us from connecting as professionals, which is the biggest hypocrisy, really, because we're saying it's all about being connected and having everything together. So we should be working together, and it shouldn't be that, you know, holistic therapists are treated any differently to, you know, psychotherapists. But in the real world, we are, and they are. Unfortunately, we still have what is an accepted therapy and what is on a woo-woo list, you know?
You can have one foot in both camps, though, you know.
Wondering, how do we get to the point where we realize that there's work to be done on all these levels? Because so many people are just in a state that they've been in for so long, they don't recognize that there's anything there to look at. Like, that was me, you know, I had been in this kind of stress response since I was a child, and that just became the norm for me. And I didn't realize any of it was there until after I was diagnosed with cancer, and then I really started to have a look. So how do we get people just in general to be more aware of these sorts of things?
It is really hard, but I suppose for me, I would think like what we're doing today, people see it, you've just got to wait for that penny to click. Because, you know, I look back and I think up until sort of I became a practitioner, which is probably 20 years ago, but the first 30 years of my life, I think okay, it didn't bother me until suddenly we had a sick child. And so that's when mine kicked in. And I think it's when you're put into that fear or that pressure point that you suddenly think, I need to find an answer. If you don't hit that, you never. And some people are quite happy to go along with, and this is not knocking Western medicine, it has its place. Yeah. It's, you know, there are places when we need it, but people are so used to, I've got a cough, oh, go to the doctor, get a pill. That pill's going to solve everything. Instead of thinking, well, actually, what can I do myself? And I suppose the world has changed slightly since COVID came about, and people were then put into, that's not working, this is not working. Maybe there are people that did wake up and go, hey, I need to be looking after me. There's more I can do myself. But it is just waiting until people wake up. And maybe we've got that chance because people are more awake than they were. So there's so much that they can do themselves and should be doing themselves to help.
I think we have a huge responsibility in this generation to learn this stuff, and it is about generational healing, isn't it? And you know, my parents certainly didn't know any of this. And I did a video recently, a TikTok, an all, you know, 3-minute video on, we got to stop blaming the parents as well, because people only know what they know with the knowledge that they have at that time. And so by doing these amazing group chats, podcasts, whatever it is, putting our stuff out there, spreading the message. I used to work as a primary school teacher. I believe very strongly that they radically need to change the well-being curriculum, because it is so disconnected from where it needs to be. They could do huge work. And so therefore supporting mums, supporting parents, mums and dads, doing these videos, the free resources, the paid resources, you know, parents have a choice of where they want to learn this stuff. And I encourage everybody to go out into the private sector, because there are amazing people just like us out there that are doing all of this stuff, but they don't even know that you even exist or cover. Because unfortunately at the moment in the public sector, it's not there. It's not
interesting, because I was watching something recently, and it was to do with tapping, but in Australia, and they are introducing it into the schools for the young children. And they said the behaviour within the class structure, the teachers said absolutely totally amazing. The children are going, when can we do some more tapping?
Mm-hmm.
And their behaviours change. So if only everybody would listen and apply those. That's just one example. But some of those things about self-care, into, you know, start when they're young.
It's true. Before COVID, I was training schools in peer massage. Peer massage was something I did at the beginning of my teaching career, and I had a class of amazing kids, but they were so used to climbing trees. And they literally would climb the walls. And I went on this course, and I was very new. I was a brand new teacher to the career, and I was sent on a training course. I went and learned peer massage. I came back, I applied it to this one class, and I'll never forget my head teacher saying, if you can get behavior management for this class, then you're going up in the world. Right? It was a challenge. As soon as I learned about the effects on our cortisol levels and increasing serotonin just by even watching massage. When you go and get your hair cut at the hairdressers, you'll relax just watching somebody getting their hair washed. You'll relax just watching someone. Even now, you know, all I do is just touch myself, and it's like really relaxing and calming. So I took this peer massage into the classroom, and I shit you not, everyone wanted to join in, even those that said that they weren't too sure. And that taught them personal choice, boundaries, safety. Would I like to receive a massage? Yes or no. And you didn't have to. You could just observe. You'd still be able to breathe in the serotonin in the air of the room. You know, I didn't even know the science behind that. And they wanted it every single day. So after every lunchtime, we would do 15 minutes of peer massage. And it was amazing. And then they could get back to focus, because they all settled their bodies and their nervous system. They got back to calm. And when they got to calm, they got to focus, you know, and motivation. It was amazing. And so, yeah, I started doing massage and peer massage training before COVID, but then that happened. And I was like, well, I don't think they're going to let me in, start everyone touching each other for a while. So that put a stop to that. The key message here is we have to start working with our body, right? That the fear is not all up here, and it's inside of us, and we have to learn how to release that, how to speak to it. And Laura, you know, your empathy in the way that you help your clients, and being able to speak to the inner child work and being able to acknowledge that she exists is phenomenal. And then that's where we start, and then we can just
as you're saying. And also the Julie, you were saying as well about living in that fear, that fight or flight response, that can be inherited, that can be ancestral. That's how your parents learn to process fear, learn to process all the challenges of living in the world. So you've learned it from childhood, and it is your normal. I know that I saw here when you said that, Julie, that was my normal. I didn't know any other way to be until I learned otherwise. And I think, as you were saying as well, Jackie, like it's either something radical happens, or radical self-honesty. Something terrible happens, or radical self-honesty. So, and sometimes the terrible thing that happens leads you to your radical self-honesty as to what is going on within you, and learning how to integrate mind and body. For me, I was living with stress for so long. There came a point that I literally collapsed. I literally had a fit from sheer, I think it's called a dorsal vagal shutdown. I literally, my body at that point felt like I was going to die, and I went out like a light, and then came round and had like so much shame for that having happened, being that level of vulnerable. But that was my opening to understanding, to learning, to growing, to moving forward, to making sense of it, and to the career that I have now. If I hadn't have had that happened, I probably would still be living in stress response fear and going, well, it's just normal, it's how it is. But yeah, that dramatic incident then led me to radical self-honesty, which led me to understanding, which led me to learning how to share that with others, I would say.
Absolutely, absolutely. It does take a huge knock to awaken you.
Yeah.
Which is why it's beautiful to get to the other side of that, even though it's shit at the time. It's beautiful to get to the other side, to be able to look back and realize that was a gift. That it truly was a gift. And that moment for me, when it came up, I can let go of the shame that I felt around that moment now, because I can look back and do that. You have to go through that freaking tunnel.
Yeah.
Which, when people are listening to this, they might be at the beginning, in the middle, they might be towards the end. We don't know where they are. But I also want to just bring up that it's important to talk about the positive side of fear as well. So if we end on that just very quickly, because, you know, for so many reasons, we need fear for motivation, for those things. So let's have a little chat about how it can be really helpful.
So I was just thinking, really, it's like the lions coming down the road. Okay, that fear is like, you need that because that's going to protect your life. So there are situations when we need it. Yeah, and it's appropriate to have. It's when we take it that next step. So it's finding that balance, I think, which is what Laura said earlier. It's about finding the balance of, we need fear because, you know, fear's good in the sense of it'll help motivate you. So if you've got fear within your business or within a personality or with a friend, it can be that challenge to make you either stand up for what you feel is right, but it also can be that thing that actually motivates you to think, actually, I'll go and learn about that. I'll go and do that next step. So there's lots of aspects that is really beneficial to us as a human to grow, for our mindset and all of those things, which I think, you know, for Julie and for Laura, they spend a lot, so do you, Sam, but they spend a lot of time on those things. So you have to have a certain amount of fear, I think.
And fear wants to keep you safe. That's the thing. Fear literally wants to keep you safe. So when you know that it's actually, it wants to take care of you, but it's maybe misplaced in that it's coming from a time when you experienced something terrible in the past. So being able to hold that, this, like the inner child work that I do, being able to be like the adult that's actually holding that and saying, I know you want to keep me safe, but I believe in this circumstance I am safe and we can move forward. So holding it kindly and then moving forwards from that. I learned something, I discovered something yesterday that I'd done in 2021 and forgotten about. Basically taking this in two hands. This is what I want to do. These are my fears. And literally really making them real, describing them, how they look, how they sound, etc. on each one. What I want to do, what my fear is, and then bringing them together slowly together into like linking the hands together and then bringing them to heart actually calms the fear and actually helps you grow, helps you acknowledge the fear and also hold it to move forward, to be able to take on what you want to do. I really liked that when I learned it again yesterday. I'd forgotten it entirely and went, oh goodness, how could I have forgotten that?
How about you, Julie? How is fear positive?
Well, I think, you know, like I said earlier, the biggest mistake I ever made was believing that it shouldn't exist. And when we actually sit and listen to the fear, it's like the doorway into a deeper understanding of ourselves on the situation that's going on. And this is what I tell people. I mean, fear itself is not something to get rid of. It is there and it's built in for a very good reason. But as we've evolved, the fear has stayed way back, you know, like it seems like an old system. It's not been updated as quickly as our world has, you know, and so we've got all these things that can be perceived as dangerous that actually aren't that dangerous. But yeah, so just sitting in the fear and examining exactly what it's trying to tell us is a really beneficial thing. If we're always running from it, we're not learning anything. So I see it as a learning tool. And I actually wrote a poem about this. I posted it in the little chat thing because it's for me, it's like a calling card. You know, and it leads me to that gripping feeling, and then I can figure out what it's all about if I just sit quietly and listen to it.
I think all of us today have shared the fact that we need to develop a better relationship with fear.
Yeah.
And with all of our emotions, all of them. But fear, if it is holding you back in your life, for whatever reason, if you're listening to this, if we can develop that relationship, then we are actually so far ahead of the game, because only 2% of the population even consider doing this inner work. And when we consider that there are 8 billion people on this planet and only 2% even bother to check in on themselves, then you are doing amazing things for yourself. So thank you so much, guys, for coming and chatting today. This has been so amazing and really helpful. And we're going to be coming together more often and chatting about all sorts of great topics. So if you're listening to this, wherever it's been posted, and you have any questions or you have any suggestions or key topics or questions that you'd like us to answer, you know, we'd love to answer them. So just pop them in the comments wherever you see this, and we'll speak to you again soon.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, thank you.